of experience. So
opinions are amazing as long as they're wrapped in packages that are not
there
offensive.
you go. Yeah, there's no reason to offend. Sometimes the truth is going to offend, but that doesn't mean your intention should be there. So for sure. Well,
That's
awesome.
right.
Well, it's about that time, my friend. Here we go. It's time for another power-packed episode of Evolved Sales Live. Welcome back. I'm Jonathan Fisher. In every tech company, whether you're well-established or still in startup mode, your go-to-market model is absolutely critical to your success. But with dozens, if not hundreds of go-to-market strategies out there, which one is best for your enterprise? And in a fast-changing marketplace, how do you know which updates are needed to keep pace? Well, our guest today is uniquely suited to help us discover some answers. James Buckley is the chief evangelist for JB Sales, a highly regarded training company serving dozens of global corporations, including Fortune 100 companies such as Google, Cisco, LinkedIn, Amazon, and others. In addition to his work with JB Sales, James is a podcast host, consultant, and sales trainer in his own right, and uses his big personality and deep knowledge of selling to help thousands of professionals all around the world up their game and become top performers. And we're excited to have him on the show with us once again today. James, it's fantastic to see you.
I don't think I've ever had such a great intro, man. Thank you.
Heartfelt, my friend. So a quick reminder for audio viewers that are not as well acquainted with you. Tell us again, what do you do every day?
So our whole focus is to help you sell better. In fact, that's the name of our newly launched brand, sellbetter.xyz, Sell Better by JB Sales. Sell better because you deserve to. That's our whole focus. We want to get in front of teams, frontline sellers, and show them a better way to sell. Not necessarily the right way, because there's no silver bullets in this game. We don't claim to be the end all be all. What we do have is a very wide array of other voices that we are associated with that we tend to put in front of people so that they can get all the different types of sales best practices that are out there and be more effective with more types
Love
of
it. That sounds fantastic. Side technical note. I'm getting some notes that your audio could be a little bit louder, my friend. So if you want to go ahead and choke up on the bat, as it were, and we'll
There it is, choked up. How's that? Is that better? Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
I think we're perfect now. Hey,
There
while
it
we're
is,
on a
perfect.
side note, quick reminder to our live audience, hey, it's live for a reason. We want to have your questions answered by the expert on site right here. So go ahead and start setting those in via the chat. And when we get to the end of our conversation here, we will veer over into a Q&A, and we're going to pick the brains of our awesome expert on the call today.
I love Q&A. It's my favorite thing in the world.
All right, well, our topic today is the ideal go-to-market model for your SaaS company. So maybe we could kind of break this down, James. I mean, first of all, go-to-market, let's maybe set this up with the rubrics, right? I mean, the elements you need are what?
So first of all, go-to-market is literally how are you going to sell this? That's what it means. It's not complicated as you might think it is, but the pieces that go into a go-to-market strategy can get very complicated very quickly. So let's talk about some structure, some bones. First of all, you need a marketing team. That is a big, broad stroke of the pen. Because when you say marketing, what are we including in that? We're talking about content creation. We're talking about a social digital footprint that makes an impact. We're talking about a community, perhaps, that you might be trying to build. We're talking about engagement. We're talking about demand strategies. That all falls, and much, much more, under the marketing department. So that's number one. That's the first thing you need, is a marketing strategy.
What comes next?
That's part of the go-to-market plan.
So what comes next? Marketing is generating leads, right? Hopefully these are interested parties raising their hand. Yes, I'd like to learn more about that solution for my company.
The next thing that you need is a tech stack. You have to have a way technologically that feeds the pipe downward. Now, this can be very complicated. And the reason it can be complicated is because not everything needs to go to the sales team from the marketing team. Some things are kind of bogus. Great example. I know no matter who you are, no matter who's listening out there, you have received an email that is essentially screwoff@screwoff.com. Well, you're probably not super amped to follow up with that lead. Right? So there's a filtering process that has to exist. Enter the sales stack, right? Data verification, something to that effect needs to exist. Lead routing, right? Think like Lean Data or Gong. They all have lead routing now, right? You need that kind of stuff. those things push the right things into the hands of the sellers, the people that can reach out and start an actual conversation. So let's say that you manage that part of the tech stack. Now you need a completely separate part of the tech stack, and that's the sales tech stack. You need a sales engagement tool like SalesLoft. You need something to control these conversations and be able to analyze them and interpret them and make changes to the way that people are speaking to your prospects. Think Gong for that. You need a way for your salespeople to send videos out so they can personalize their outreach. Think Vidyard. You can already see how the technologies are stacking on top of each other, one after another, just to enable somebody to sell your product. This is all part and parcel to building a go-to-market strategy.
I love it. So there have been so many changes that are involving integrating some technological solutions into the sales conversation. So the whole old hat approach of trying to fill a calendar, do a demo, and follow up based on whatever your CRM is, it sounds like there's a whole lot more we can do now, is what you're saying.
Well, all of that matters, but there's too many pieces. We can't take one thing and say, well, this is the main thing, right? That you'd be doing yourself a great disservice building a go-to-market strategy around this one thing, whatever it is, right? Instead, you have to think of all the pieces. And one of the most important pieces you can do is have a defined ideal customer profile, an ICP. Who do you sell to? Why do you sell to them? Why do they love you? You got to know all of these things as a team collectively, so that you can build the tech stack to filter the right people down to the sales team and have a higher close rate, a higher conversion rate. You're never going to be able to do this if you don't dial in the purpose of your product, the people that buy your product most frequently, and the reasons that they buy those products. If you can't figure those things out, you're going to have a very difficult time finding all the right pieces of this go-to-market strategy and putting it in place and seeing it be successful quickly. Everything will be successful with time, but the idea behind a go-to-market strategy is that you can scale it rapidly.
What's the best way to inculcate some of these insights, assuming that you've done a good job researching your ICP, your leading competitive advantages, and so forth? Is this something that should be turned into like assets for the salespeople to have and maybe share in their sales work, or what's the best methodology around that?
My belief is that informing your sellers about your ideal customer profiles and possibly even the different personas that might fall into that ICP is probably one of the most important conversations you can have early on with sellers. And we're going to get into the breaking apart of salespeople and when that's appropriate and when it's not. You know, going from, seed A or pre-seed to, Series B, Series C. We'll talk about those changes as we move forward in the conversation. But all of your salespeople, specifically the salespeople, and I think marketing has a really good grasp on this initially. So again, go to the market strategy. You need that marketing piece first. They're going to have a lot of information early on about who those ICPs are and who those personas are that really gravitate towards your solution, your product, your service, your industry, your vertical, the things that they need from your service. They're going to have the most information the soonest. That trickles down to the salespeople. And the salespeople have to have expert knowledge on who they sell best to, why they sell best to them, and the reasons those people continue to do business. I think your customer success team is the most common resource that salespeople don't leverage to get this information in their brains faster. Meg Holsinger is our customer success director at Sell Better by JB Sales, and I will tell you that she was the first person to say, I'm not going to waste time on that. It's not qualified. Right? And she'll tell the people, I'm sorry, based on what I have here, I don't think this is the best fit for you. Right? We will walk away because you're not qualified, and it's a waste of your time. Forget about our time. It's a waste of your time. We're not going to be able to give you what you need, right? And that is such an important factor for you as the seller, because you got to know where to put your eggs. Which basket do they go in? They go in the ones that are most likely to close.
Well, I like that. And there's integrity in that as well, right? When you're selling and you're qualifying, and it's not just some sort of little verbal game you're playing. Oh, yeah, we're going to qualify you. But if they've got a heartbeat and they can pay for it, you'll take it. But no, if you really come at it that you actually are qualifying for what is your ICP, I think that integrity really has a lot to say for it, maybe even worthy of its own conversation, right, in terms of brand impact and your potential for growth.
I would have a conversation about sales integrity 1,000 times over because it's such an important factor.
Well, all right. That's for your third visit with our show then. So preceded right here. So I love it. So what comes next? So we've got, are you kind of talking about sales enablement? Would that be a fair rubric for what you were just talking about?
Sales enablement is a department that, in my opinion, is relatively new. I think it's existed for a while, but it didn't have the label of sales enablement until I'm going to say 2018, 2017, late 2017. I started to hear it more often. And then I think it became a department that finds the best tech stacks, the best solutions, the best processes, and really hones in the sales process from start to finish for an entire sales team. So like sales enablement specialists often end up learning about new technologies and how they fit their existing tech stack, and how they improve specific situations or solve a different problem that they've been trying to solve for a while. These are the functions of sales enablement people. Process is normally where we land. That's the stuff that we find that people struggle with. Hey, I have a great sales team. Oh yeah, what's your sales process? Well, it kind of looks different for all of them. You don't have a great sales team. You have great sellers.
Yeah, that's different. Two different things.
So your go-to-market strategy feeds those sellers. But building a go-to-market strategy and having a sales process are two very different things. A go-to-market strategy is definitely more of a net, and a great sales process is more of a spear.
Makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move then. And do we have all of our rubrics, by the way? Are those all the key elements? Yeah.
I think so. I think if you look at the tech stack and sales enablement tools as two separate things, because tech stack is sort of ubiquitous for these departments, and then you look at marketing, and then also maybe analytics too. I know I've worked for companies that have whole analytics departments, right? If you're not thinking about taking and analyzing all your data, take some time and do it yourself, even at a high level. You don't need an entire department to do it, but man, what's the point of collecting all that data if you're never going to look at it and make good business decisions because of it? That's going to help you build a go-to-market strategy that's successful faster than anything else.
So let's move then into this whole life cycle kind of concern that you already alluded to. If I'm in startup mode, I've got seed round, and I'm working my way to try to get an A round of funding, or maybe I'm even A or B. You know, that first startup mode, that first 2 to 3 years or so. Most of these SaaS companies are making it 3 years, by the way, but then 94% of them in recent stats are then failing, even with growth and funding. Yeah. So this is actually a real felt need out there. And we know that from the stats. So something's not happening in terms of analysis once there is some momentum, once we have some maturing of processes in business. So maybe we could kind of talk about both of those. Let's just think of that as two audiences, right? So the first audience being in that more startup mode. I can already think of some of these elements like research on ICP, understanding market differentiation. That might be a whole different piece than later. Talk to us about that.
So I think the biggest question that startups have is, and again, I have to lean on sales again, how am I going to build a sales team? Because that's the part of the go-to-market strategy that matters most. If we're going to go to market, we're going to go to market with people that are going to be able to put this in front of individuals and create desire for it, right? That's the sales team. I think startups that are pre-A round fund should consider full cycle sales reps before SDRs. The reason that I think this is a smart decision is because, one, most of the time if you're dealing with a full cycle sales rep, they have sales experience. They've been down the road of SDR, AE, customer success, or even just one or two of those, and they understand what sales is. So you get a more experienced seller when you target that. But the other thing that happens is you don't have to be the closer. And I think startups have this problem where they have founders that are essentially the sales team. They wear all the hats. Every founder everywhere once was the only person making cold calls, the only person sending emails, the only person sending invoices, and the only person onboarding and training, right? Like they were once that person for everybody. When they hire somebody, they think to themselves, well, I'm not comfortable with somebody else closing for me because that's my money. Like that's my success, right? That's my growth. That's my security in someone else's hands. So I think I'll just hire an SDR. Well, that's great, but that SDR doesn't have your background immediately. It takes a long time for them to get familiar with your product, your service, your history, the ICP that you serve, the personas that buy from you, the problems that you solve, the solution you provide, the language, the technology out there, the competitors. It takes them a long time. You already have that knowledge. Right? If you buy or if you hire somebody that's full cycle, that person probably won't struggle very much to grab onto this information and then figure out how they're going to use it in their sales process. They already have one. It's baked in. They came with it. They got there and they know how to do it. Let them do it.
Yeah.
So that you can go and focus on the growth of your company. And then you can grow and hire more. Start another department. Figure out that thing that you haven't had time because you've been doing so much sales, right? This allows you to break away from the sales cycle and put your faith in this person that you hired and go grow your organization. Go make another decision. Go start the next department. Go hire the marketing person you've been thinking about hiring. But you've got to step away from sales and put your faith in somebody that's full cycle before you can step away to do the rest of the business, the rest of the scaling.
So taking your advice in hand, as we're moving down that timeline, we're growing. How do we make that shift? I mean, and where does that full cycle individual land? Do they kind of advance to AE or do they become some of your C-level people? How do you envision that kind of unfolding through time?
My belief is that that first full cycle sales rep that you hired should ultimately end up becoming your VP of sales. They can then go out and they can hire a sales director. And that person will come in as a full cycle sales rep. And then you will start hiring people, and the two of you will help coach, train, and onboard these individuals and make them elite sellers with great resources, information that they didn't have, training sessions, the knowledge that you've accumulated over your time being at that company. I've done this personally with my team at Ringlead, and I ended up hiring two people. I had one person that ended up making it long term. And that's a success, 50% success rate on the hiring. Hey, great job, right? If you hire 10, you're lucky to keep two. So that's 100% real. If you've never hired 10 people, you'd be lucky to keep two.
Principle in action, brother.
So this is like, the way that we hire as we grow our organization. And eventually what you end up with is a core group of leaders for each department and minions, people underneath that are super pumped to do the job. They believe in the product. They've been learning from everyone around them in a group. And that's when you can take a step back and you can say, all right, 3 account executives, 3 full cycle sales reps that I hired. One of them is my VP. One of them is my director of sales. And the other is our first hire, right? Because that's your senior seller. Okay, so great. We have these 3. Hey, guys, what do you think if I hire 2 SDRs to come in and start setting up meetings for you? Now you can start looking at the predictable revenue model, or I should say the old predictable revenue model. It has changed quite a bit. Thank God. It's definitely needed a facelift. But now that you've begun your marketing venture and you've got 3 sellers that know their stuff, you can break away from that full cycle model and you can start like literally doubling the number of meetings and sales opportunities those sellers get with 2 SDRs. I find this to be a very comfortable strategy for many startups. I've seen it be successful several times.
It makes a lot of sense. I can definitely see some pitfalls that would need to be avoided. Some full cycle people, how do you put this? They may have some things that would need to be unlearned, and that doesn't always come out in the early process of trying to bring them on, right?
Every seller with experience comes in with bad habits. No one is immune to that. We all have it. It's a battle that we all face. We're humans.
Well, and then you've got to fund that opportunity, right? Because I think long gone are you've either got equity in your opportunity, or you're going to have to fund that individual, right? I mean, that's going to be something to be, and then you got to sell that to your investors. So there's some challenges around this. It's not that this is an easy model, but I think what your argument is it still a better model? Regardless of, and maybe you have some recommendations around those.
If it was easy, we wouldn't need shows like this to help break it down for people. Right. Everyone would be an entrepreneur if it was easy to do. And I think, and we can talk about this. I think one of the biggest problems that you have with go-to-market strategies is that they rely on individuals to do their part. The tech stack is one part of it. A piece of technology is nothing without the human being sitting behiend it, making it do what it does. And the same can be said for any other strategic part of your go-to-market strategy that you build. You could build the biggest marketing team in the world. If no one knows how to write in a complete sentence effectively, you're probably spinning your wheels no matter what. Because all the content that they put out is going to be mostly images and no words. Well, who are you? What do you do? Can you explain this to me? Like, this type of conversation is the type of conversation that everybody should be having at their investor level as well. Hey, I want to set expectations.
Right.
This is our go-to-market strategy. What do you guys know about it? Right? Allow your investors to be a part of that conversation. Well, here's what I think you should do. Here's what I think you should do. Take that information into consideration. Create a timeline for them so that they understand this is my first hire and they're going to be this role. By this time, I need them to be here. And if they are, I'm going to hire this person and this will be their role. If you can map the growth trajectory out this way, and if you have a good idea of what your revenue will look like, go ahead and make the prediction too. Right? That's really important for them to see because they want to see the company scaling with the revenue that it brings in.
Would you just do that based on sort of like comps, like look for other similar SaaS companies?
I suppose you could do it based on comps. You could probably do it based on what you're planning on charging and your ICP and the personas. If you, for example, if I sell a product that is $500 per license for a team of 5, well, I know that that's $2,500. If my ICP is a team of 5, my average close is going to be $2,500. If I have one full cycle sales rep closing 5 deals a day at $2,500, I can pretty much tell you what our monthly annual recurring revenue is going to be unless I hire someone else to meet that same standard. This is the simple math. There's much more complicated math that we can throw out there, but this is the simple math of scaling your team.
Yeah, love that.
And you kind of back into it, you know?
Back into it meaning what?
So it's just like backing into a sales equation. We talk about this in our filling the funnel training. Every seller needs to know, I need to have this many activities to get this many demos, to get this many proposals, to close this many deals. The problem is you don't know those numbers until you're in the trenches doing it. That's what I mean when I say you have to back into it. You can put the equation out there, but you can't fill the numbers in until you're in the trenches doing the job. A go-to-market strategy is extremely similar. You can make theories. You can make predictions. You can take guesses. But in the end, when you go to market, when you actually start putting the rubber to the road, you're going to learn a lot about where you need to pivot and the changes that you need to make so that that go-to-market strategy makes more sense.
Well, another thing that comes into the conversation here is with a full cycle individual heading things up early on, your marketing team is also trying to develop actually mature marketing channels that are going to work. And hopefully it's channels plural, right? That interplay between those two, there's always wrinkles, right? There's always hiccups. There's always issues there, and it's very difficult to get your costs and your acquisition where you want those to be. Now, with what you're talking about, there comes a point where there should be a pivoting, where some of these early hires become senior leaders, and you move to this SDR model. Can you unpack for us a little bit more about that transition and what that can look like, and what some of the what are some of the steps for analysis that a SaaS company should be doing to know that it's time for that?
So first of all, I think that they should become leadership, and that transition should be planned. They should know that that's the case early on. If I hire my very first full cycle person, I want that interview to go like, hey, I'm really hoping this goes well because I'm going to look to you to become a leader here. This is a great starting point for this person. And they'll be able to look for that opportunity as well. Hey, I think I'm ready. I think if you wanted to hire somebody, I could probably do it. You need them to feel that way. So I think that should be an early conversation. When it comes to the transition, though, from the other full cycle sales reps, the team of full cycle sales reps into a leadership role, they got to be on board too. This looks like a lot of career planning, right? When I bring that director in, for example, I need that person to know you're going to report up to Sarah. Sarah is going to be the VP of sales. Because you report up to Sarah, you're going to have 2 or 3 people underneath you. I need you to manage them and work with Sarah to make them successful. This person now knows I'm responsible for those 3 people, and their results I report up to Sarah. Right now, we're going to bring these 3 people on. Hey guys, this is great. You're starting out as an SDR. You're going to report to Mike. Mike reports to Sarah, our VP. The long-term plan here is that you guys will be in this SDR role for 1.5 years, possibly 2 years, and then we're going to move you into a closing role, and you'll become full-fledged account executives that are full cycle.
I like
sales.
that. Yeah,
work for you.
I like that. It's not easy work, right? It's a bit of a grind to do those jobs well. But when you have the hope of this career growth, and that can put a lot of fuel in that fire for people.
It's supposed to be an arduous journey. Very few people decided yesterday that they were going to be a sales professional, and today are multimillionaires. Very few, if any. Most people that are successful sales professionals, it took them a long time to get where they got. And some of them that are still, quote, sales professionals don't even do sales anymore. I am a great example of that. I love sales. I still make occasional sales from time to time, but I host events. I drive engagement. I'm top of the funnel. I talk to strangers every single day. That's my job. I get them interested. I pull them in our direction. I've graduated from a full traditional sales role into this multi-hat wearing sales professional that can do lots of things for lots of companies. And that's why they find me valuable at Sell Better by JB Sales. If you want to dance for your dinner for the rest of your natural born life, start hiring salespeople without a go-to-market strategy for their growth.
Yeah.
But if you are somebody that looks to the future and says, man, I can't wait to just like not have to do the grind anymore and still love my sales job, build that go-to-market strategy with good expectations, strong tech stack knowledge, great people that are invested in their future at your company, and learn from your investors. They've seen and done things you've never heard of before. They can show you and make introductions and tell you things that you've probably never thought of in your startup stage growth. Learn from those investors. They gave you the money. They gave you the support. Get the resources too, yo. It's really important.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, James, just by way of application then, man, what a great conversation that blew by. Let's see if we can't maybe give a couple of action steps to our listeners. At any stage in the game, like maybe they're hearing you, maybe you've sold them on your approach, and that's not what they're doing right now. What would you recommend they do?
So if it's not what they're doing right now and I've sold them on my approach, my initial reaction is to tell you that start talking to the people that work for you immediately. Ask them what they wanted out of the job when they started. Make sure that they're doing all that they can to help you get to the next stage in your growth because you have the resources. You hired them. You brought them in. If you have 5 people, they're all thinking to themselves, okay, when is this going to pop off?
Right.
When are we going to boom like we thought, right? Go talk to them about how you can help them do that. Here's another strategy that you can do. If you're bought into what I said and you've been doing something different, take a step back and look at how your sales team is currently designed. If you have 3 people, ask yourself, is it okay if I split them up, or should I make them all full cycle if they're all doing different jobs now? If you have an SDR and an AE and a customer success rep and that's your flow, what if all of them did all the jobs and they all became prospectors, closers, and customer success reps? If you made all 3 of them full cycle, would that do more for your revenue numbers? Probably, because you'd have more people closing more deals, right? For now, that's a good change to make. You can go hire other SDRs later when they start to become really good at this job and you feel like, all right, it's time to step it up a notch. You do about 4 demos a day. What if we hired 3 SDRs to match up with you guys and pair you together and you end up doing 8 demos a day? Well, that equation that we talked about earlier just changed, didn't it?
It certainly did. It certainly did. Well, James, I love it. What a great conversation today. I know for certain we got some good quality and impactful content to our audience.
Yeah,
how will people best follow up from this conversation and go deeper with your insights?
Yeah, come find us at sellbetter.xyz, first of all. Make that stop first. You can learn more about our content and our learning at joinjbsales.com. You can follow me personally on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Say What Sales.
That's it, as in Say What Sales.
Say what?
Good stuff. Love it, man. Well, a reminder to everybody that today's show is sponsored by Overpass.com. Are you looking to hire a team of ready-to-hire remote sales professionals fast? There are thousands of highly qualified sales reps waiting for you on the Overpass Talent Marketplace. As the world's leading solution for hiring pre-vetted talent, Overpass makes building an unstoppable sales team quick and easy. Filter by industry and experience. Interview, hire, and begin your onboarding process in as little as 2 days. Create your free account today at Overpass.com. Well, folks, it's time for Q&A, and our buddy James here says it's his favorite thing, and we got a lot of questions coming in here, bro. So we're gonna have a good.
Let's go.
Good afterglow here.
It.
All right, so let's see here in no particular order. Let me go through. I got a bunch, brother. Let me grab one here.
Dude, let's roll through.
I'll start with a comment. One of our listeners, Andrew, says, it's action, data, insight, pivot. I think that's a fair characterization of kind of what you were saying before, isn't it?
Very smart. Yes, I love that sequence there. That makes a lot of sense, especially if you're talking about building a go-to-market strategy that has the ability to be agile. Agility is so important when you're working a go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, for sure. So, what do you think about outsourcing some of the pipeline development? Is that something you mentioned, having a marketing team earlier? That was one of the questions we have here from the group. Awful lot of companies just bring in like a marketing firm to do that piece, right? And outsource it. What are your thoughts on that?
So this depends on the type of company that you want to run and the part of the cycle that you want to own, because you can outsource almost anything in today's world. The problem that you have with outsourcing in general is that you are emotionally invested in your business. Most of the leaders that you brought in want to see that business thrive, and they're invested in the business. If that business is successful, they get to be successful. So they are invested in the business. But that outside source that you brought in, based out of wherever, they could care less. You're just another account to them. It's the difference in going to a private college and being a name and going to a giant university and being a number. It's the same concept. If you outsource, you're probably going to get what you want. They preach what they preach and they do what they do because they're good at what they do. But just because you outsource your sales development doesn't mean that those outsourced sales development reps are going to qualify and discover to your liking. So you have to know that you're going to find those lackings with every outsourced resource that you might leverage. There's going to be pieces that might not be as great as they could be if you had someone internal invested in the company doing that job.
Love that. Love that.
That's a decision you have to make, honestly. Yeah. Because sometimes you don't really, if you can sell to anybody and it doesn't matter what their persona and ICP, it doesn't matter. If you could sell to anybody, if you're like B2C and it's just like, yo, are you interested in this? You can buy it, whatever. Outsource that SDR stuff, man. Because you don't have a heavy qualification. But if I sell to sales enablement leaders with teams of over 150 in the Saas space located in Oregon, I can't outsource that SDR work. I need someone in Oregon at my company that's selling.
That makes sense. That makes sense. You've really got to attune it to the circumstance. A question from Sadiq. He's asking, how can we design a marketing workflow that works? Maybe you can kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
Man, we use a lot of tools, and I'll tell you a couple, but here's the thing is the content strategy. The content strategy is so heavily impacting the marketing strategy overall, because we've got to have a consistent stream of content coming out, and then we have to be able to look at the engagement and figure out, okay, who are the people we could sell best to that are engaging with this content? Who are the titles that are gravitating towards and reacting towards this content? Who are the people that we want to have a call to action for, right? If that is what you are doing, that part of it requires some level of consistency. That's going to be the hardest part. When it comes to flow, marketing, the best marketers know how they feed sales. The best sellers understand how to use marketing people and their collateral. You have to have a healthy marriage between these two departments, or at least as healthy as it can be. And let me give you a strategy to avoid that many, many companies fall into a pitfall of. Do not compensate marketing for demos, for lead gen, for none of that. That's not what they're compensated for. If you do that, they're going to be against sales. It will be sales versus marketing. Instead, enable them to pass to sales. Compensate them for qualified leads being passed to sales that originated from the marketing collateral. If you do this, you will find that not only is there a better marriage between marketing and sales, but sales suddenly has major vested interest in working with marketing, and your messaging improves.
This reminds me of marketing firms saying, well, we got page impressions and expecting to get paid, right?
I do hear that a lot. So here's the thing is impressions are awesome and they make us feel really good. But if the salespeople aren't converting those impressions into dollars, it doesn't matter.
That's it. Got to get it aligned. Got to get it to where we're actually fighting for the same thing. We're both going for touchdowns here, not one person just holding the ball.
Exactly. But if you're a marketer, you should be sending that viral post to the best salesperson you have, and you should be saying, hey, will you go through all the engagement here and find people that we can sell to and make a list? You can reach out to them. That is a smart marketer or a smarketing.
I see what you did there, James. Earlier you said your job is to talk to strangers every day. I don't agree with that, man. You don't know a stranger. You don't think
so? I don't. I've only met friends that I haven't met.
That's right. So another question here from George. You alluded to compensation. That great insight. I totally am on board with you there. Here's one where I think there's some interesting questions out. If we're adopting your model of a full cycle person early, okay, I've seen it 1,000 times. I've seen it once where the founder is offering equity and comp based on performance. Like go out there. So it's it's neat what you kill model anyway, right? But others are getting it funded, right? They're actually having a funded salary and going W-2 with the whole nine, with obviously some skin in that game. So equity versus cash comp. Do you have a dog in that fight? Do you care? Do you think there's some concerns? Okay.
I do, but it's not what you think it is. It depends on where that seller is in their life and what their goals are. And that is about the leadership that is deciding on their compensation, having a real conversation about what comfort and success looks like to that individual. Okay. Because I can tell you that I used to manage Taco Bells. I made $15,000 a year together with my wife for 5 years while we went to college. I got a $30,000 a year job plus commission when I first started in Saas. And can I tell you that I cried because it was the most money I'd ever made. Perspective is everything. Some people believe that they need to have $1 million coming in to be successful. I never had that view. My goal when I started in Saas was that I wanted to be able to take my family to dinner without having to check my bank account first to make sure that I could. That's still my goal today. I surpassed it many moons ago, but I'll never forget that that's my goal. So compensation is dependent on the individual in a lot of ways. And yet we should have a baseline compensation that we offer, quote, our employees. My second year as a seller, I got a $10,000 base pay bump. My third year, I got another $10,000. Now, I was driving major results. So, the compensation reflected my performance in a lot of ways. My commission changed the fourth time I got a raise, and it became a little bit more. But my base raise was a little bit lower this time around. My next job, I shot for the moon. And I threw a number out that I thought would be ridiculous. And they were like, you start tomorrow. And I was like, wait. That's how it went, right? And then I moved to John's place and, everything changed again. And we have to have this mentality as individuals, and leaders, companies have to know that you are potentially training somebody and onboarding somebody and giving them skills so that one day they don't work for you anymore. That is a very real possibility. Understand it, accept it, be proud of that. We just recently had Morgan J. Ingram move on from JB Sales. I can't tell you how proud we were of him. As a team, we were excited for this next chapter in his life. That's the way it's supposed to be. Right? So compensation and your relationship with your employees go hand in hand.
I love that. I love the balancing of this human personal element with all of this process conversation we've been having. And they're both extremely important, obviously. The process that should serve the people is probably the rubric here, and there should be some flexibility. Do you have a bias toward W-2 over 1099 with the early players? Because a lot of times it's 1099, eat what you kill, but you can earn some equity. And here's a nice fat commission.
1099 is always more hungry because they're typically compensated more on the deal, more on the close, more on the action that they're compensated for. W-2s, however, are much more consistent, right? They come in and put the work in. They put the effort in. They drive it, right? So both have merit, depending on where that seller is in their life and what they want out of the job. For example, not every 1099 gets insurance. I know salespeople that have jobs and they want to leave, but they can't because their kids are so in need of this insurance and they have this great doctor and it's just so much. So when you talk about 1099 versus W-2, it's going to depend on what your business model is too. If your business model is such that you don't want actual employees, that's too much overhead for you, and you don't want the burden of having to people hack every day and figure out what motivates individuals. If that's not you, go the 1099 route. Hey, buddy, go sell it. It's all you. If they go sell it, great. If they don't, that's all right, because you have 10 other 1099s out there selling, right? And you can go collect 1099ers. There's a lot of people that will sell your stuff on a 1099. I don't even want to be an employee. I just want to sell your shit. Can I do it? They are out there.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Well, and the reality is, that whole digital nomad / remote lifestyle, that's not going away. So that is one way you can definitely tap into that, even for other functions besides sales.
Certainly not.
Along this line, you're talking about the people hacking. It reminded me back to an earlier question back from I think who it was, Andrew. Yeah, Andrew asked me, how do you define sales integrity? He wanted to ask you earlier.
Sales integrity is knowing when to walk away from a deal because it's wrong. It's not a good deal. So I'll say something to you that John said to me probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but it stayed with me forever. And now he says it all the time to other people, and I think it's become part of our culture. Salespeople, especially inexperienced salespeople, tend to think that their job is to convince or persuade somebody to buy from you. That is not our job. The best salespeople sell what they have to people that need it. That is very different. If you are convincing, if you are chasing, if you are persuading, what you're really closing on is a problem for your customer success team. That's what you're closing on. Sales integrity is about knowing the difference between a sale and a con, essentially. Because we're all great con men. We are. Salespeople are amazing presenters. We are electric talkers. We move with our hands, our bodies, our passion is there. Great salespeople sell really well. But later, when buyer's remorse sets in, that customer is just out there. You got to know which customer is going to be excited and not have that buyer's remorse because you made a good sale. But if you're convincing, if you're persuading, your sales integrity is down. You should work on that and get that needle pointing north.
Well, I love it. Well, you've sold us on some great ideas today, James, and you never disappoint. Fantastic once more to have you on our show. Thanks for being a great guest today, James.
Friend. Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you. Shout out to everybody that asked questions.
All right. Well, everyone go make it a fantastic weekend. That'll close out this episode of Evolve Sales. You guys take care. We'll see you. This is where that 12.5-second delay makes it fun. As soon as that 1 second. Yeah, almost there.
It's a 12-second delay.
Boom. And done. All right. Yeah.
All right.